What up, you bunch of mat junkies? I call you that because I know most of you guys are itching to get back in the gym. And, for those of you that don't train jiu-jitsu, because I know we do have some of you, I know a lot are still martial artists, so maybe martial arts junkies. But either way, happy to have you guys here on the show today. We're going to talk about some goal-setting stuff. It came from a question recently from one of the viewers, and I think that it's something, this idea is something that's been useful to me, and I think it could be useful to other people. Again, it's not specific to the goal that this person's chasing. I think it could be useful to anything that you're chasing. But again, take it and hopefully it's useful to you. As always, guys, big thanks to our sponsors. We got Charlotte's Web. Charlotte's Web is our CBD sponsor because, again, most of you guys, I'm sure you're seeing tons of CBD stuff all over the internet, all over, stuff. And I think it's for a good reason. It's an amazing product. And if you get good CBD oil products, it's a game changer. Again, I was very resistant to the idea. I heard about Charlotte's Web as far back as like 2012, I think, is where I first started hearing about it on Joe Rogan's podcast. And, initially I was like, okay, again, it's snake oil. Like, there's so many snake oil products out there. Oh, this is going to be great for you. It does this, whatever. And so I didn't believe it, and then I remember trying, I had some CBD rubbed on my back one time, just a balm, and literally within hours, the muscle tension and pain that I had was gone. Started taking a tincture that I was getting from a local company, and it was amazing. Sometimes it wasn't, and which I didn't enjoy because sometimes it was like I would take it and I felt like I was high. I was like, I would take it. It was just like, I don't know what was going on. Then sometimes I'd take it, I didn't feel anything. And so, again, we got hooked up with Charlotte's Web and started trying their stuff. And I really liked it because of the consistency. I found that I don't have to take as much to get the same effect, and it's been really useful to me, especially during this time period where with the coronavirus and the quarantine stuff where I'm not able to train as much. It's been useful for kind of helping me settle down at night and kind of relaxing. So, if you guys want to try it out for yourself and kind of hopefully I can make you, or hopefully make yourself a believer, right? I'm not trying to make you believe anything, but again, because everybody's body reacts differently to this stuff. But again, for me, as soon as I took it, I was like, yep, I'm taking this. And then I've taken my body off of it. And it's one of those things where I don't have to do it, but I really enjoy the way that I feel and the way that I recover when I'm on it. And so if you want to check it out, you can go to charlottesweb.com and use the promo code Chewjitsu to save 15% on whatever the heck you order. And again, I really like Charlotte's Web for the reason being is that it's a high quality product that's consistently good. And in a situation where everything is unregulated, you don't know what you're getting. So I'm very particular about what I put into my body, so I want to make sure that I'm getting something that's consistent. Because if I become sort of reliant upon it to give me a particular feeling or effect, I want to make sure that that's consistently going. So I'm working with the same thing all the time. And then we've got Epic Roll. Fun story about the Epic Roll shirt. So recently I was in so if you don't know, if you've never been on their website, you can go to epicrollbjj.com and check out their shirts. And Matt makes these. He's the owner of Epic Roll. He makes these shirts, and I went into the grocery store the other day, and I was going in there, and I was walking around, and I kept seeing people stare at me. They kept staring at my chest and my body, and I was thinking like, well, maybe they're either checking me out because they're attracted to this handsome bearded devil, which is kind of probably unlikely. And then the other one is that I was thinking man, I must have a stain somewhere on my shirt because sometimes I have a tendency sometimes to eat like a 4-year-old and and get stuff on my we'll get ready to go out to dinner or something. Just you can't wear that shirt, you got a stain on you. So I was thinking, well, that's probably more likely because I was wearing the shirt earlier when I had breakfast, so I was staring at it, and then I realized I had the shirt that said triangle choke, and it was talking about it's a definition of it, had it all written out, so people were staring at me trying to read it and what the heck is a triangle choke? And it was a fun, because again, some people know what jiu-jitsu is, but even people that casually watch stuff, they don't really know what a triangle choke is, so they saw it and they're like, what is a triangle choke? What is that? And I don't know, it's kind of fun. It was reminiscent of wearing old jiu-jitsu related t-shirts back before anybody knew what the heck jiu-jitsu or MMA was. I would wear these shirts and these jiu-jitsu shirts, and people would be like, what is that? I would have to explain it. It's like you're part of a club. So anyway, if you want to check out that shirt, the triangle choke shirt, or any of the cool shirts that he has, check him out at epicrollbjj.com. And he also has this, I think they just released it at the time of recording this it's a pretty epic shirt. That he did with Tom DeBlass, where they're going to be giving it away to charities or to gym owners and students or whatever. They're doing some sort of charity shirt with it.
Basically, all the sales from the month of June are going to go to somebody that's been impacted by COVID.
Okay.
Like maybe their gym closed down or whatever. Something they're going to pick someone. I don't know how they're going to do it, but they're going to donate all the sales from the shirt to
Okay,
that.
and so like they're coming out with it, and it's the most ridiculous shirt ever. I have to get one from him because it like has like all the most ridiculous like conspiracy / like just random stuff in there. There's everything from like Tupac to Bigfoot, and
Bigfoot's got a mask on.
They got a mask on.
He's got a mask on. It's good.
It's a fun shirt. Check it out. It was reminiscent of the one Brandon McGaffron. He gave me this one shirt, which is like this sloth hanging on the side of flat Earth it's a 10th Planet shirt. I was like, this is fantastic. But again, you can check all this stuff out at epicrollbjj.com, and you can use the promo code Jiu-Jitsu to save 15%. 15% on your order. And then the last thing we got today, guys, is Jugo. Jugo is a card game that again we got the card game from what is his name? I forgot his name. James, that's right. And we got his the card game, and basically it's a neat thing where you get these cards, and I keep marveling at the artwork. I love the artwork, which he did himself, which to me is super impressive. I have like absolutely no artistic bone in my body, so to me I'm like, it's like, this is pretty cool. He got Yoko's E Honda.
What card is that?
That's Mount. But he's got all these different cool cards. Basically, the way that it works is, and he has rules on it you can check out. But basically, you string together multiple different moves to the card game. So it's almost like if you're playing a card game, like almost like Rummy or Uno or something, where you're stringing together these long strings of combinations, and you're basically playing them against another player. And so you might do for instance, you got the Seonagi into a position like control, like side control into a submission, right? That could be a sequence. And so again, playing those together, and then the other person has to do stuff. And it's basically a way to do it. And when I played it with my girlfriend, it was kind of interesting because she's done jiu-jitsu a little bit, but she's still not the most experienced person. And so when we're playing the card game, she was having to kind of think about, okay, all right, so I just did a sweep, and now I've got to get to a position of control. So side control, right? Yeah, okay, cool. And so she's having to think about it. And I was honestly thinking about it. I was like, this would be kind of a cool game to have with my kids' class.
Yeah.
To let them play maybe before class or something. And so it's something I'm going to test when our gym opens back up and we have kids in there. I'm going to let them play and teach them the rules and see how they like it. If you want to check out the card game, what's his website?
JugoPlay, JIUGOPLAY.com.
And again, if you decide to snag yourself a pack of the cards to play with your significant other, like I did, or with some kids in class or whatever it is, the promo code is Jiu-Jitsu, and you save 10% on the order.
It's cool. And I actually played. My wife and I played, and my wife's done a little bit of jiu-jitsu. She's dabbled a little bit. We trained a little bit together. She's come to a few classes, and she got it right away. And it was kind of cool, kind of interesting, just to get the mind going. Yeah. And I think it's a great way to introduce people to jiu-jitsu that maybe aren't aware of what jiu-jitsu is. Give them a little bit of an understanding on what it is.
Mm-hmm. And just like I said, get familiar with the way that the sequences work. You're going to pass guard to get to side control to get to a arm lock or something like that.
Yeah.
And again, guys, as always, if you want to support the podcast in another way, if you want to get some additional content, if you want to support the podcast directly, you can go to patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. And what that'll do is there's a Patreon there, and we put a bunch of extra content up there. Every time we film a podcast, we put an extra show on the back end there. We also put some video content on there from time to time. There's a seminar there that I've done. There's some warm-up stuff, and we throw that stuff up periodically. But again, it supports the podcast directly. So if you enjoy the podcast and you have a less than a quarter to spare every day, so 23.3 cents. If you can spare 23 cents a day and you like the podcast enough to do it, check out the Patreon website and you can do it. And again, guys, I always sort of throw this out there to you in case you're not on it. If you want to know what I've got going on, if you want to know what I'm up to, what's cooking, and even just sort of get some jiu-jitsu related information, check out my I do an email newsletter. It's usually Monday through Friday, and you can check that out at jiujitsu.net, and you can go I'll give you a free ebook that I made a couple of years ago. You can get that ebook, and then you'll get my emails. And if for some reason, if you're like, hey Chewy, I don't like getting these emails Monday through Friday, then you can always unsubscribe and I'll stop sending you emails. But if you like them, which a lot of people do, they send, I sent one out earlier this week talking about the workouts you don't want to do for jiu-jitsu, because a lot of times people have questions about workouts, and I was talking about a type of workout, a type of sort of protocol for working out that you do not want to do if you're a jiu-jitsu practitioner, which is because it's only going to lead to injuries. And I had a lot of guys send me messages like, dude, I did the same thing, or man, this was really helpful because, I've had the same problem. And again, it's just something else to be of use to you. So you guys can check that out at jiu-jitsu.net. Now, with all that said, guys, let's jump into the podcast today and let's talk about some goal setting. And I'm going to answer a question for Johnny. What's up, guys? So today on the podcast, we're going to talk about kind of an unintended benefit of the whole quarantine thing. And again, I'm not going to talk about it too much because I'm sure you've heard about the COVID and the quarantine enough. But again, it's one of these things where because of its impact on our lives, it colors everything that we do, because it's one of those things. Every one of us is impacted by it every single day. And so there is an impact, but there is kind of a benefit, at least I've seen from some people. And even for me, there's been a couple of positives to come from this, and we're going to talk about it. But we're going to kind of start off with a question today. This one comes from Johnny, and Johnny sent me a message recently, and he's a young guy. He's in his mid-20s, and he has a wife. He has 2 kids, and he has these dreams and goals of aspirations of owning his own gym someday, being a pretty good high-level competitor. And he asked me, he's like, man, Chewy, and I'm kind of giving you the nutshell version of it, but he said, I really want to compete well in jiu-jitsu. I want to own my own gym. I want to have these things, but at the same time, man, I got to be a good father. I got to be a good husband. I've got to do these things. And he wants to get a new career. He's working on going to school to get a new career, and he's wondering, how do you manage all this stuff? And is it even possible to do them? And so I figured what we talk about today is I'm going to sort of, for Johnny, I'm going to give an idea on goal setting. And again, this is not necessarily specific to his issue. This is something that, again, everybody's got their own way of doing this stuff, and this is my experience with chasing goals and going after stuff. But again, this can be for anything, not just if you want to own a gym. This can be literally anything that you want to do. And so the analogy I'm going to share with you comes from, I went to the range one time with a friend of mine, and we were shooting a gun, kind of a longer distance shot, right? And at the time, I'd never done this before. And so we're shooting this rifle. And, he had some experience, in the military and stuff like that. So he's kind of showing me some different stuff. And he gave me these 3 sort of fundamentals, if you will, before we shot it. And so he said, first things first, we got to make sure it's on a stable foundation. So before you shoot that gun, it's got to be stable. You don't want the gun wobbling around while you're trying to make this shot downrange. The next thing is you need sight alignment in your scope. You need to have that scope lined up so that this way that you're on target, that what you're staring at down that scope is what you're at, is what you're going to hit, what you're going to shoot towards. And then the last thing was follow through. So when he was talking about pulling the trigger, he was like, pull through, sort of follow through the trigger with your whole body. Don't just pull the trigger back and jerk it off target where, if you shoot the bullet, it might move around a lot. And then if you've got to take another shot, you're off target. You want to follow through with your whole body in a very smooth motion. So this way, once the shot goes off, it's a very smooth shot. And if you've got to take another shot and make an adjustment from your last one, you can do that more easily. And so when he said this is kind of how my brain works. And I'm a little bit out there, I guess, compared to some people, but I instantly was thinking of kind of goal setting, because it's a very similar thing, right? When you're taking that long shot, it's the same thing with when you're kind of looking at a long-term goal, right? When I went from when I started thinking about going into doing jiu-jitsu full-time, one of the big sort of, I guess you'd say, inspirations was I went to train with my coach, Sean Hammonds, right? And this is something I had dreamed about, like any other jiu-jitsu practitioner. It was like a dream, just doing jiu-jitsu full-time, right? I went down to my coach's, Sean Hammond's gym down in Nashville, and I went down there and trained for a full week. And this is even before I was his quote-unquote student. He was producing champions down there. I wanted to train with him and make myself better, so I took a week off work. Me and my buddy went down there to train. And I remember training 2 to 3 times a day while I was down there. And I was inspired by the vibe of the gym. Everybody was training hard. It was fun. There were a lot of people on the mats. It was such a cool place. And then I was inspired because I wanted to do that. These guys were living that jiu-jitsu lifestyle, which was that kind of rough, kind of grimy life. It's not necessarily pretty, but for me, I looked at it, I was like, that's so cool. I want to kind of do that. Well, when I came back up to the gym, I remember sitting down. I remember this to this day. I was already starting the process and didn't realize it, but I had a house up for sale at the time, and I was trying to get out. It was basically, I bought the house, wasn't a good idea. Bought it to appease the girl that I was with at the time, and she ended up cheating on me, and then stuck with the house. You're like, why the hell am I in this house? I was doing this for her, not for me. So I was getting out from under the house and had it up for sale. And I remember I went to the office area that I had kind of staged, and I was writing in my journal that night. And when I got back, and I was like, just what do I want to do? Like, what is it that I want to do? And I wanted to train. I wanted to do jiu-jitsu. I wanted to have a chance to do this thing full time. And so, at that point, I started really focusing on getting myself into a more stable position, because I knew that if I was going to take that leap, I wouldn't be able to make as much money as I was making right now. So I knew that I had to get into a better spot financially to make that happen. So I started working on getting out from as much debt as I could. So this way, and I didn't have a bunch, I never really took on a lot of debt, but I had some, and I wanted to make sure that I didn't have that. So this way, when I took the leap, I was in a much more stable position financially, right? And by stable, I don't mean making a ton of money. I mean, like, I'm not basically bleeding out money every month because I've got, a fancy car, lots of credit card debt, that kind of stuff. So I started paying all that stuff off, right? To get myself in a more stable position over the course of a couple of years. And then, at the same time, I started thinking about it while I'm journaling and thinking and visualizing. I started thinking, like, what is it that I'm after? Like, what is it that I want? And again, when I say what I want, I'm not talking about what society has told me that I'm supposed to want, right? Like, for instance, cars and big houses and clunky watches with stuff on them. Like, that stuff has never really excited me. And it's not something I'm really after, And again, so for you guys listening to this, I encourage you, I'm telling you this right now, as we're going through this, again, when you think about your own goals, you got to know what you're after. It can't be something that society wants you to have. Now, if you want a house, if you want a big house because you want to see your children run out in a big yard, that's a good goal. If you want to have a nice car because you want to feel cool and it would be something that you'd be happy with, well, then that's fine. Go get it. But for me, it's just not something I really wanted. And so I was like, well, okay, I don't want any of these things. What do I want? And I started lining that stuff up. So then I had my sight alignment. So just like the gun, right? Just like getting ready to shoot the rifle, I had to get in a stable position first. So get in a stable position, less money's coming out. I can take a big pay cut and I'll be okay. Then getting my goals aligned. What is it that I want in life? Making sure that I know what I want. And then the last thing is the follow through. And the follow through was that for me, the follow through came from a situation where I'm thinking about what is it that I have to do to make this happen, right? So when I came back from that trip with Sean Hammonds down in his gym, I was a newly minted brown belt, and I literally was like, I want to take this damn brown belt off. I felt like I was unworthy of it because I didn't do as well as I would have liked. And so I was inspired from that trip to get to the gym. I mean, literally, it used to be I would go home first, hang out for a couple hours, and then go to the gym. Well, after that trip, I immediately left work and went straight to the gym. I would go to the gym, I would take a 20-minute nap, get up, and I'd immediately start training. So from 5 o'clock till like 9 o'clock at night, sometimes later, I would be at the gym training, eating a snack or a protein shake, training some more, just there the whole time, teaching classes, whatever I had to do. I was basically like, look, I've got to be at the gym more because I've got to make myself better, because if I'm going to do this stuff full time, I've got to have something to give to people, and I don't think I'm ready yet. So I started to go into it. And then I started working overtime because, again, if I'm going to pay off my debt, I'm going to have to work more. So I'd work overtime on the weekends and days where I was supposed to be off and things like that. I'd work a little bit overtime, do what I had to do. And again, I started setting like daily things that I could do to work towards those goals. And, even now, this has stayed true where, again, when I get a goal that I want, I think about, well, what is that going to take me to do? And again, for me, this is the way that I do things. Everybody's a little different. When I set a goal, I think about what is it that I want? And then I think about like what daily thing could I do to make that happen? And this is actually I've been doing some coaching clients for people that are trying to develop their business a little bit more. And a lot of people during this quarantine have been wanting to build sort of like, especially gym owners have been wanting to build like kind of an online component for their business. And so I've been doing a little bit of consulting and coaching for that. And like one of the things I tell them is like, dude, figure out some things that you can do daily to make that happen. And so for me, it's like the follow through is daily action. Right, it doesn't matter what. Like even yesterday, Jess and I and her friend, we went kayaking down in near the Red River Gorge in Kentucky, and it's like this underground kayak where we're in these old like limestone caves or limestone mines where we're kayaking. It's going to be a fun trip, right? Well, I told Jess she has to drive down there, so I had an hour and a half to work. So I was in the back seat typing away on something that I'm working on. Now, again, some people are like, oh, that's overwork, whatever. But for me, it's like that's what I do because I had to get my daily action in. And like for me, it's like if I don't do my daily action, whatever it is, I feel like I didn't wash my hands after using the bathroom. I don't feel like I brushed my teeth before I went to bed. Something's off. And so for Johnny and for anyone, I would say it's the same way, right? First off, you got to get yourself into a stable position. So for Johnny, I'll structure the question directly to you. You need to start. I would pursue that career that's going to make a little bit more money so that you can be a good husband, a good provider for your family. Because again, the world needs good men. Right? The world doesn't need more men that are going to shirk their responsibilities to chase something that they're passionate about, right? I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but good men are needed. Be strong for your children. Be strong for your wife. That's important. It's super friggin' important. I mean, there's no more important thing than a human being can do than that, like to help rear children, to help provide them a good experience when they're growing up, right? It's super important. As someone who grew up where I didn't have a good relationship with the father, it was something that deeply affected me. And so, again, I would encourage you to be strong for your family and to be there for them and to provide for them. Once you're in a stable position, again, and you should think about this the whole time, what is it that you want long term? Like, what is it you want? Because let's say, for instance, if you're like me, if you're like, I don't really want big fancy cars or houses. I'm not trying to be I'm not trying to be on an episode of MTV Cribs or something, right? If that's the case, then make sure you understand that now, because it's an easy thing to all of a sudden you make a couple extra bucks, you got a few more nickels to rub together, and then you all of a sudden say, well, you know what? I think I'm going to get this more expensive car. I'm going to get this expensive house, and then you get caught in the rat race, and then you take away your mobility. Your stability that you were trying to create is not there. So make sure you get that set in place first. Know what you're chasing, and everything works towards that, right? And then the last thing is just follow through, So again, it's going to be tough on those days where, you're going to school for your new career, you got kids, you got a wife, you got all these damn things going on at the same time. And, it can be tough, but if you know why you're chasing those goals and you know what you can do daily, you can at least make something happen, and continue to provide yourself with the necessary training or the necessary work that you need to make those things happen. And so again, for anyone else that's listening, if you have those goals, you have these big dreams and aspirations, that's a good thing. Start making that into something tangible, right? Because again, there's nothing wrong with a dream. Just make sure you kind of turn it into something. For me, I don't do well with I've seen like some of these guys, these like internet gurus, where they like do like goal setting, and it's like this big involved confusing friggin' process, right? Like, and for me it's like, oh my god, I can't do this. It's so confusing. For me it's simple. Like, if you want to be really good at jiu-jitsu and do something with it, you're gonna have to train consistently. There's no damn way around it, right? That's what you got to do. So how are you gonna make that happen? And everybody can make it happen if they want to. And then there's other things where, like, okay, for instance, when I started doing the YouTube videos, I saw that there was something there, and so I was like, well, what am I gonna do? Well, so every day I record a little bit of video content. Sometimes it's for my products online. Sometimes I record stuff for the podcast, or sometimes it's for the YouTube channel. But for every day, Monday through Friday, I record at least 1 hour of something, of content every single day. 1 hour. At a minimum. Sometimes it's longer, but at least 1 hour. And again, and then with my emails and stuff that you guys probably get if you're on my email list at jiu-jitsu.net, I write those emails, and I write other stuff for posts, and I write other stuff for blogs. Or I've got my Vault membership where I send out a written thing every month. I write for no less than an hour a day. And again, I got a few other things that I do, but these things are just given. They always get done no matter what, and those help me accomplish the goals that I'm after myself. And so again, for you got to do the same thing. You have to have some stability for yourself. And stability could be monetary, could be relationship stability, could be whatever. Put yourself in a stable position so that then you can put your focus on those goals that you have. And then, afterwards, then you can start to follow through with them with your daily actions. And so for Johnny, I hope that's helpful. And then for any of you guys, I hope that's helpful.
That's good. No, I mean, I was just thinking, just formulating questions on my own, like, when you're coming up with a goal. Like, what if somebody is even at the beginning, before even where Johnny's at, where they don't know what the hell they want to do? Like, they don't really know what their passion is. Yeah. Like, and yours kind of changed, as things progressed. You kind of wanted to fight in MMA, and then it was more being a jiu-jitsu practitioner, and then owning a gym. Like, how did you even go about adjusting that goal, or maybe even just creating a goal that, if somebody doesn't even know what they want to do?
And this is, I kind of didn't mention it earlier, which I should have, but this is a good time for it. One of the benefits of the quarantine we've been in is everybody's gotten a lot of time to be with themselves, right? And so for me, this is an important thing. So there's and I'll get your answer to you in my normal long-winded way.
Yes, of
but
course.
like, so there's a story, and I don't know if it's like a mythological sort of thing or if it like was absolutely fact, but there's a story about Henry Ford. And again, Henry Ford, he had his own problems, but obviously the guy did some visionary stuff for business, right? But he the dude, they said that Henry Ford back then was kind of seen as an unintelligent person, right? He wasn't seen as very smart. And they, would criticize him and stuff like that. And he told them, like, listen, come up to my office one day. All you reporters can come up here that are talking crap about me. You guys can come up here, and I will answer any questions you have about my business. So they come up there. And supposedly he's sitting at a desk, and he has like a bunch of phones around him, right? This is the time before switchboards, so he had a bunch of phones around him. So they'd ask him a question, he'd pick up a phone, call someone, say, he'd give him an answer, put the phone back down. They'd ask another question, he'd pick up the phone, and then he'd put it back down and give them answers. And they were like, why don't you know anything about like how all these specific things run about your business, right? Why don't you know this specific thing about like this thing that's going on, right? And he said, because I have to do more important things. And then they asked, like, what's more important? He said, think. To think, just to be able to think. And you think about that. Most people day to day, and again, I don't want to act like I'm so much better than you or anything like that, but a lot of people don't spend time thinking about themselves or what they're doing or thinking about anything. They're constantly bombarded by stimulation, right? They don't take like a break from their phone. Like I'll tell you right now, you know what a great exercise is? On Sundays, put your phone down. Don't look at it. Like, pick it up if you need to call someone. Like, I'll talk to you on Sundays. But my phone is like rarely, I throw it in the corner usually, and I don't look at it. I do this through the day most of the time anyway. This is why people go, Chewy, you never get back to me. I'm like, I'm not around my phone very often.
The worst text message returner of all time.
Yeah, but it's probably, I mean, I've been better about it. I usually get back to you at least same day, but it's probably going to be later. And it's not that I don't like doing it. It's just I throw my phone to the corner because I don't want, the damn thing's going.
Stimulus is there.
Right.
I was fortunate. We went on Sunday. We went to my wife's parents' house, and they live about an hour away, and I forgot my phone at the house.
Nice. Perfect.
And I told my wife, I was like, I probably would have been glued to that thing, and it was weird. Initially, I felt kind of naked almost.
Yeah.
I'm like, what if somebody needs to get a hold of me? What if something's going on? I don't know about it. What if my parents need to call? Whatever.
Right.
All this crazy shit. And then I was like, I felt like I was more present. I was kind of free a little bit.
Sure.
And so that's been a hard thing for me. Like my cell phone's I'm always kind of like using that stimulation. So I think, I mean, having the ability just to be present, to think a little bit more was, even for that 6 hours that I didn't have my phone on me, it was interesting.
Yeah.
It was really unique.
So, and that's the important thing. So basically, how can you be in touch with yourself, with what you want out of life, with whatever's telling you, right? If you're like so glued to stimulation that you're not able to be receptive.
Yeah.
Right? It's like if you're constantly being bombarded by stimulation, you can't allow your thoughts to come in. This is something for me whenever I'm like, when I'm working on something like a project, I don't listen to audiobooks. I don't, like, during the day. I'll typically do some at nighttime before I go to bed. I'll read books or something like that. But during the daytime, diet. Only thing I want to hear is my own thoughts. I won't listen to songs with lyrics. I listen to like classical music, or I'll listen to like instrumental music or like chill hop music or something, like where it just beats or whatever. But I don't listen to anything with words. The only words I want to hear are my own, because it's like I'm thinking about something. I gotta think. Like things have to, the thoughts have to be processed. And I think that few people do that. Like everybody's constantly being bombarded by stimulation and stuff. And I think it's a great exercise to take a step back, because like Henry Ford said, thinking is the most high end. And most people don't think about it this way. But thinking, especially if you're doing productive thought, your ability to think, right? Because everything that has ever been done starts off as an idea, right? My jumping into jiu-jitsu full time, that was an idea that started, right? The YouTube channel that's going really well, my online business, the gym business, all these different things. These were ideas first that then became something, right? My ability to, when I was a teenager and got in shape, right, where I went from a big fat chunky kid to getting in shape and winning regionals at all that started off literally as an idea one summer, where I was like, I don't want to be fat anymore. I want to be in shape. I want girls to like me, and I want to win regionals. All those things happened. It started off as an idea, right? Girls love me.
Ladies.
The ladies love me.
Ladies love Chewy.
I'm walking around with this big fluffy beard and hair right now, the quarantine cut. I feel like the sort of hairstyles are going to change because of it. But again, all that started off as an idea first. So again, thinking is your highest. It's the thing that humans do that other animals can't do, right?
Yep.
It's the thing that we do that others like just can't do the same way. And so again, when you free space to think, you can allow things to come in. So, if you're younger, you may not know what you're passionate about, and that's okay. Like you said with me, it's going to change.
Right.
But your best thing is to start dabbling in stuff, do things, follow your intuition, and then find stuff, and then again, be open. Be receptive to whatever. Like to turn off all the simulation. Put your damn phone away. Delete Facebook. I deleted Facebook. It's on my phone again now, but I broke the habit. I deleted it off for like 2 months. And I added it on my phone just so I could get a hold of people, especially during the quarantine, so I can like message people during the gym. Once the gym's back and going, I'm probably going to delete it again. I just don't like it, and I use it to communicate with people online. But otherwise, I would check it on my computer once a day, right? That was it. I would do the same with every other. The only one that I have on my phone right now is Instagram, and that's the only. It's because you can't physically post from your computer effectively, right? If I could, I wouldn't have it on there. Because it's like I don't want to be ding 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 like constantly. I want to be focused on what I'm doing. If I'm like, for instance, we had a cookout the other day. We were out there, shooting guns and stuff. I didn't look at my phone like almost at all. I took a couple videos of us shooting, but I didn't like friggin' look at my phone. I'm in the moment with them. So again, a great exercise for people would be to, and again, here's a great thing. So like when you talk to a person that's an addict, right? I've had family members that are addicts. When you tell them, hey, listen, why can't you just like not do that? They get very defensive because they're like, I can do it if I want to, right? The first thing is denial, right? That's always the first stage, right? They're like, they get kind of defensive and they're like, I can stop doing this if I want to, but it's just, I like doing it, right? You talk to someone that drinks coffee and you tell them to like, could you just like not drink coffee for a day? Oh, I could stop if I wanted to, but I mean, I just like coffee. I mean, I like the taste. I was like, no, you're addicted. Be honest with yourself, right? And people are not honest with their phone addiction. They're digitally addicted, right? They can't. People have this friggin' like you said, they feel naked. They feel compulsive with their phone touching.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Compulsive, I think, is a great way to. I felt compelled to feel like a pull, a draw to it.
Well, it's like you think about, like, for instance, one of the things that I do, like, and again, maybe I'm so friggin' weirdo or something. Like when I'm sitting around sometimes, I just like to sit and think. I just like to sit and relax and just look up around like, man, no, look how pretty the trees. Man, the clouds are beautiful right now. And just sit and think. Like, like I don't, there's a lot of times there's an awkwardness with people where if like they're sitting not doing anything and they're just sitting by themselves, like, and they start to like, you see them fidget and they like instantly have to pull their phone out because they want to feel like they're doing something. Whereas like there's beauty in just don't do anything. Just sit there, be still for a minute and relax. It's amazing the thoughts that can come up, and it's amazing the feelings and the ideas that can pop up from that stillness.
Yeah.
And so like, again, for anyone, I think it's such a beautiful exercise. If you feel like, and again, you just check yourself. If you're sitting there like, oh no, my phone, like I can put my phone down anyway. Well, then put it down for a day. Put it away. Like nobody's going to have to call you it's that important. And if they do, they can probably get a hold of you another way.
Sure.
Right. Or delete all the social media apps off of your phone. You can still have them on your computer. You don't have to delete your accounts.
Yeah.
Delete them off your phone for a week. Just see how you feel. Just see. You can always bring it back, right? I deleted Facebook for 2 months. 2 months. I bring it up. My average screen time on it now is like 5 minutes a day. I check
that's
it.
Good.
I get in, get out, and that's it, right? Message a couple people. That's it. Instagram's like 30 minutes. I get in there and I make a message, make some posts, whatever, and get off. It should not be ruling your life. Yeah. And I think that constant simulation, it sort of constricts people's thoughts. And again, when you look at like successful people, they don't sit around and dick around on their phones all day. They have them and they might post on them from time to time, but you look at them, a lot of them, the conversation is one way. Like a lot of these actors and stuff like that, they might get in there sometimes, but they also have people managing those accounts. But they typically don't go in there and start like fighting with people on their social media accounts.
Right.
They don't do that. They just like, they make a post and they're like, whatever, I'm out. They make a post. It's that kind of thing. There's nothing wrong with having conversation inside of a post or anything like that. But again, you just don't want it to rule your life. And I think that really a lot of times things like social media and the phones and stuff like that really it constricts people's ability to want to just think and really like listen to what their own thoughts are telling them. Because again, if you're going to find something in your life that's going to give you the passion, if you're going to find something in your life, a new goal or whatever, that's going to come from you, not from someone else. No one else can give you that. And I think this is the thing. People are always looking outward for the answer. The answer has to come from you. You know, and like, for instance, if someone listens to any of the videos I said or any of the podcasts and that we've done together, and they think, man, that really made sense. The only reason it made sense is because it's already in you. We just brought it out. We just said, hey, by the way, there's this idea we articulated in words, and you listen to it, and you're like, wow, that thought was already in you. That's the only reason it made sense. And so a lot of times, like when I made this all of a sudden this aha decision to quit my job and go full time to jiu-jitsu and to MMA and to teaching, I was driving one night and I had the radio turned off. I'm driving in my car at like 2, 3 a.m. I'm tired. My brain's relaxed. We just had a great time, and I'm frustrated that I have to go to work in like a couple hours. And I remember just driving. I had about a 30, 35-minute drive home, and I'm just driving in quiet, right? The only thing I can hear, I have the window rolled down, the wind's breezing through me. It's a summer's night, spring night, and I'm driving, I have my hand outside. I'm just relaxed. And then boom, it hit me. Right, because I'm thinking about things. I'm receptive. My mind's going, and I think that's an important thing. Most of my best or my craziest decision that came from intuition came from situations like that, not from like where I was listening to someone else to give me the advice, but when I was kind of receptive to what am I feeling right now? What do I think? You know, because again, it's your own life. You know, nobody can give you the exact right way. You have to be willing to listen to yourself sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, making like that decision, you know, making that really, you know, because you had a good job, good money, and then making that pretty drastic decision to make that change. You know, what do you think compelled you to do that? I mean, was it just like knowing internally you just didn't want to go back to work? That was just not what you're passionate about? I mean, what was it about making that choice? So I guess some people maybe have these decisions, or like Johnny has this passion for jiu-jitsu, and he has this regular kind of job, whatever his job is, you know, 9 to 5. How do you go about just making that decision to go after that goal? And then also, when do you make the right time? You kind of did say have a stable base and things like that, but like when do you know when the right time is?
Yeah, so hold that thought, and then I just wanted to make sure that I got this idea across. You guys, if you're listening, it's like, what is it right now? Like 3 something?
Sure.
And I just had my first cup of coffee like 20 minutes ago, which is pretty late. So usually when I do the podcast, I'm not like wired up, fresh, full of caffeine.
This is good.
Yeah, right. So, but I wanted to make sure that the point was across, that like with this quarantine thing, you've had time to be like, you've had this thing pushed upon you, where most of us have been forced to work less. Maybe not everybody, because some people like work from home and stuff, but a lot of people, their whole lives have been rearranged.
Yes.
And a lot of us have been forced to take a step back, forced to, right? And so you're able to look at it and go, is this what I want to do? You know, I do this every year where I do a vacation by myself, right? I will take a week. Actually, I do it maybe once or twice a year, but I'll do a vacation by myself, go away from everyone, so that I can get distance, and I can say, okay, is this what I want to do? Is this how I want things to be? Is there things I want to change? Because sometimes there are,
right.
You know, there are things I want to change sometimes. Like I remember when I was working too much, and I was like, I never see Jess. I want to see Jess some, right? And that's when I started handing some classes over to people, not because I didn't want to be there. I desperately want to be on the mats every single day, but you know, I don't want my whole life to go by and not see my woman, you know? So it's like, I have to make time for her, you know? And so again, taking that step back so I could see that. And so a lot of people have now had that thing forced on them, where they're like, okay, I just took a step back. Is this what I want to do? Is the way my life going? Is this what I want it to be? Because if it's not, you can change it. You get to change it. It ain't easy, but you get to change it. You're the master of your own destiny. So what do you want to do? And so with that, you know, again, you can kind of maybe set your sights on a particular goal or something you want. Now, as far as the goal that I had and how that whole thing came about, I don't think there's ever a right moment. The way that it happened with me was that I had this idea, this goal in my head, literally for years. I'm like just thinking about it. Every day I would drive around, man, I wish I could do this, whatever. And then what had happened was, and I truly believe this to some degree, I don't think it's as woo-woo as people think, but I think that a lot of times when you get so obsessed over something, they talk about this in things like Think and Grow Rich. Have you ever read that?
Yeah, I read that book.
I think that talk about the idea of like having this burning desire in you towards something, right? And this faith that it's going to happen.
You have to put it out like into the universe almost.
But I think that, and again, I don't like to talk about my goals too much because when I talk about them, they end up like fizzling out. And they've done studies on that where if you talk, like some people like me, if you talk about your goals too much, it's almost like you get the satisfaction as if you've done them. And so then all of a sudden, like, so for me, a lot of times I keep shit to myself because I don't want to talk about it because then I want to be like, hey, I did it. See what I did? Like when I was doing the YouTube channel, you guys never heard me talk about it. I was doing it, but I wasn't talking about it. I didn't tell you the things that I was doing. I didn't want to be like, hey, this is what I'm doing. Whatever. I wanted to do it, right? I had an idea it was going to work, but I didn't want to talk about it because if I talk about it, I would fizzle out.
I remember actually seeing your videos pop up initially, and I was like, we kind of started. I was on Facebook. We had like a Facebook where we're like, "Did you see Chewy's video on like it was like Jiu-Jitsu Times or BJJ Eastern Europe, one of those like or whatever, one of those websites." And like we were messaging like, "Chewy, I saw your video on here," and then they start popping up over and over and over, and we're like, what's going on? This is kind of so that I just remember it popped into my head. That was the first time I remember kind of like noticing your videos start to kind of make the rounds. It was interesting.
Yeah. So I got to do it. And so anyway, like when I was thinking about these different goals, these things I wanted to train jiu-jitsu and I wanted to have this gym that was going to be really cool and have people there, be going to full people, and we were going to be training hard and all this stuff. Basically creating all the things that I wanted. When I had these things in place, I was thinking about them constantly. It like consumed my thoughts. Right, I mean, constantly. This is the way typically things happen. I get obsessed and things consume my thoughts.
Yeah.
And then from there, it's like you just start figuring things out, right? Like I know it sounds so weird, but like when you're obsessed with something that you have to make it happen, you'll figure out a way to make it happen. Again, a lot of times the analogy that I use is like, and it's maybe kind of crude, but like if I chase goals like I would be willing to chase a woman, I'm good. Because I mean, dude, I've done some crazy stuff to win the affection of a woman. I think every guy probably has at some point probably done some crazy stuff or went a little bit overboard to win the affection of a woman, right? Because you're chasing something that has this primal sort of DNA. I mean, it is what it is, right? Yeah. This wired thing in you that like you want this person. Now, imagine if you chased after the stuff that you want in life like that. Right. So imagine that, like, again, any guy can relate to this. Obviously with women, it's probably, I mean, I imagine it's a lot different. But, for a guy could be sitting down on his couch, getting ready to go to sleep or something. Oh, I'm just sleepy, long day at work or whatever. Oh, sleepy, tired. And then if some beautiful woman called him and said, hey, listen, I want you over my house right now. I just want to see you. I miss you, whatever. Right. He'd be up in a heartbeat. He'd be like, okay, I'm on my way. I'm not tired anymore. Right. But a lot of times with our goals, we don't do it. We're like, oh, I'm sleepy, tired. But again, you got to think about, you have to do whatever makes you tick, and that's different for everybody. For me, I would always think about the fact that, man, these goals, I got to keep working because I can't miss my opportunity. Right, I'm dying a little bit every day. Yeah, I'm getting closer to the end every single day. So like, I don't want to let it go. I got to go after it. Doesn't mean that I don't rest. Doesn't mean I don't get my sleep. But at the same time, when it's go time, it's go time. We do it. We go. Doesn't matter if you don't feel like it, you do it. And so what ended up happening is that all this time that I spent training, all this time I spent obsessing, all these times I started learning things about business and started learning things about how to create certain things that I wanted to create, right? Because I mean, like for instance, like the gym, I wanted to create a better environment, so I started looking into human psychology. Yeah, I'm like, okay, well, how could I create this thing? Like again, I don't feel like I have the skills necessary yet, so I started building up myself. And then when the opportunity, it literally was just one day where I was like, I got to do this. I can't. This just has to happen, And again, I think that a lot of times our intuition and the subconscious, things like that, even just God, whatever you want to consider it, right? It throws you a ball, right? It says, here, take a swing, right? But you got to be willing to accept that, Right. And I think that for me, I had a chance to do this before, but I missed. But then I, got myself swamped under debt. So then when I realized, okay, I don't want to do this, I got myself back out of debt. And then, that night where I'm just driving, and just everything kind of came into glance, like, this is what I want. Right. Here's your ball. Take a swing. And I took a swing. And again, the story is not finished. It could all come crumbling down, and I could look on this later. It was the worst decision ever. I don't think it would be. I think everything could fall apart. I'd still be happy I did it, Sure. But I think it's one of these things where people have to be willing to take the chance. You got to be willing to take that swing. You might strike out, but you got to try. And I think that at the same time, you've got to put some work in. Nothing great was built in a day, right? This is just something to always remember. Like, nothing great was ever built. Like, I was just listening to the Joe Rogan and Kevin Hart podcast.
Yeah.
And dude, like Kevin Hart, like when you listen to his whole story about where he came from and everything that he was doing originally, how hard he was working to do his gigs and stuff. It just reminds you, like, yeah, you saw him when he did his, like, the first time I ever saw him was his special where he was talking about his uncle that was in prison.
Yes,
Say with your chest, right? That was my first time I ever saw him.
Yeah.
Hilarious. I was seeing him like as he was becoming like a honed professional, really sharp, whatever.
Yes.
I didn't see his early performances, right? And most of us don't. So people see people like when they're doing really well. Like, I got a message from a young guy yesterday where he's like, dude, he goes, you've done all this different stuff. What keeps you going? Like, what makes you want to keep going? I'm like, bro, I don't feel like I've done anything yet. I feel like I've got way more to go. Again, it's like I'm not done. I've got way more stuff to do. And what keeps me going is all kinds of different factors. But again, perception is different. And so again, that's important because it's easy to look at other people and say, look how good they're doing or whatever. But again, it doesn't matter because I think that when you look at it as instead of trying to trick the system and get to something, whatever, it should be about like development, self-development.
Yeah.
Because like what if for instance, here's a great example. If all of a sudden, let's say that as soon as I had the dream, as soon as I was writing down in my journal that night when I got home after being at Sean Hammond's gym, what if I was writing in my journal that night all my goals, and then all of a sudden it was like, I got a call from my buddy. He's like, hey, by the way, you're going to work for us, blah, 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 on this month, and you're going to make this much money. Oh shit, that can't work. I'm not going to be ready for it. And then all of a sudden I'm supposed to be the coach. I'm not ready for it. I don't have enough skill yet. I haven't thought about it enough. I haven't built myself up enough. And then all of a sudden, let's say that back when I first started doing the YouTube videos and the internet stuff, if all of a sudden I had the amount of people messaging me and stuff like that, I would have been completely overwhelmed. I wouldn't have been ready for it. And so again, all this stuff is a slow buildup, and it's good that it's that way because you need to be ready for it when it comes. Because if you're not, when those opportunities come, if you're not built up enough, if you're not ready for them, you're not going to be ready to take advantage of it, right? The reason I was able to take advantage of some of the opportunities I've had is because I built myself up and I kept myself focused on what I was doing and developed myself enough, whether it was technically, whether it was intellectually, whether it was physically, whatever it was, to take advantage of the opportunities as they came.
Yeah. And that's a tricky thing. Sometimes having an opportunity, maybe not having the right time. Maybe it's not the right time to take on the opportunity or to take the leap. Mm-hmm. Like you said, if you're standing on a cliff and there's like rocks there and it's not stable footing, you jump, you may not, whatever, make it across or stand, whatever. But that's a tricky thing, like knowing when to leap too. Like for me, that's been something that's been very, very challenging because I'm almost like tiptoeing the water. I'm like, dipping my toes in the water and I'm just not. It's like almost like I have a hard time thinking about when's the right time for me to leap completely, to do what I want to do completely in that capacity. That's been kind of tough, and just figuring that out for me has been a challenge. But I wanted to ask you though, honestly, like balancing. That's a big thing. Like somebody sees their goal in front of them, and like you said, you get almost like laser focused on it. Like, how did you build balance? Like for me, that was a hard thing. Like when I started creating like YouTube videos and stuff like that, I'd be gone a lot more, and that put a strain on on my marriage. It really did, because I was gone a lot, and I like a little kid and all this stuff. So like, is there any like things that you looked for to build balance, or maybe how you realized that you maybe were out of balance, and like you said, you wanted to go see Jess more? How did you build that balance?
Well, I mean, for me, and again, I can't speak. I'm not speaking definitively. This is how
speak for yourself, Chew.
Right? The balance became kind of a weird thing because at first it was not balanced. Mm-hmm. I wasn't balanced at all.
Yeah.
Because I was a man on a mission. I had to go make stuff. So first off, my life, for the most part, has not ever been balanced, right? Because with my training, it was never balanced. I was training my butt off, and like when girls like would say, like I remember I had these girls that were dating me, and it's not their fault. They wanted a conventional lifestyle. I did not. Right. And I knew this from an early age. So I'd have girls that would be dating me, and they'd say, "Why do you have to train so much?" Because I got a match coming up. "Why do you have to train tonight?" "Because I'm fighting in 2 weeks, or I'm fighting in 3 weeks, whatever. Like don't train, whatever. And I sacrificed all those relationships. I was like, psh, done. I was like, I'm not doing it. Like, I know what I want, and and again, got myself screwed once.
Sure.
Because I got pulled into that, what I would consider conventional. And again, it's not bad. It's not a bad thing. If that's what you want to do, it's completely fine. There's nothing wrong with it. I just knew it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
There's a difference, right? What's good for me is not necessarily going to be good for you. It's like people's diets. Different foods affect people differently.
Yes.
You know, some people have allergies to certain foods, whatever. Different lifestyles are going to be better fitting to some people. Some people would not like my lifestyle. I wouldn't like theirs. Cool. No, there's no right or wrong way to do it. I'm just speaking from my experience. So I sacrificed those things. And then, you know, as I got into a situation with my training, eventually I got to a point where I could kind of balance that training. And then like when it was like with the gym, I had to start balancing in business stuff I didn't really want to do at first. I really enjoyed it. It's fun now. But in the beginning I didn't want to do it because I was like, this isn't what I came to do. I didn't want to deal with this stuff. But I had to start balancing in because I had to start working on to help improve the business. Because again, if you have a gym that doesn't have a good business, well, then you have no gym eventually, and you can't serve people. Mm-hmm. And if you can't support yourself, you can't support anybody else around you, right? It's like the idea, like when you're up on the airplane, you put your oxygen mask on first, so this way you can put other people's on. Right. So if I can't take care of myself, how on earth can I take care of anybody else around me? And so, started working on that stuff. And then, you know, for me, the way that I think about it is I get the plate spinning, right? So once I get the plate spinning, then it takes less energy just to kind of keep it going. And so for typically what I do is I'll go unbalanced for a while to get something going, and then I get balanced again. Mm-hmm. And so for instance, with the YouTube videos and the online business, you know, I had to get things going. So I had to go unbalanced. I'd wake up sometimes. I mean, like Jess will tell you, I mean, my old schedule used to be like Monday through Friday. I was gone, just gone all the time. I wasn't there. I was training. I was working on videos, working on content, doing all this different stuff, everything I could do. And developing something. And I mean, there'd be mornings where, I mean, dude, I'd get up at like 4:30 in the morning, 4 in the morning. I wouldn't get back till like 11 o'clock at night. And then I'd come home and go like look at Jess and go to sleep. Mm-hmm. And then I'd like, you know, then after a while I started to kind of get a balance. And now I started to work on delegating things. And that's a hard thing. So if it's a business related thing, I mean, one of the important things you got to tackle is delegation. You got to be able to hand off stuff to other people, and it's a skill. It's a skill to understand how to get other people to do things. Like one of the things like that, like I remember like hiring people to work for me to do different stuff, is that like my system that I used is not teachable to anybody else. So I was like, oh, this sucks. Like, so I had to like redo so much stuff because I had to be able to take this system that I have to teach to someone else so they could do it. Right. And originally it wasn't, you know? And so I had to delegate things. But again, you know, typically going back to it, go unbalanced is what I did. And then afterwards, getting the balance was essentially is I realized I needed it. And then basically figure out what are the things I absolutely have to do those things, and everything else can be handed off to someone else, or that they don't need to be done in some cases. Because sometimes it's like, sometimes you're doing things that you don't need to do them. They're not pushing that needle. Yeah. You know, so if you don't need to do them, then don't worry about them.
It's just kind of getting priority, figuring out what gives you most bang for your buck, so to speak.
Most bang for your buck, and the things that bring you the most enjoyment, the most productivity, everything else. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. You know, you brought up a great point when you were training with Sean. You said you went train with Sean. Mm-hmm. It was just a great gym, tough gym. You were a brown belt. Mm-hmm. Things didn't quite, you know, maybe weren't as competitive as you wanted to be. Some people would have seen that as, you know, getting dejected, getting upset. How did you use that for motivation? How did you turn that? Because some people will say, well, maybe I'm just not supposed to do this thing. Maybe it's not for me. Mm-hmm. How did you turn that into a motivator?
Mm. You know, I remember hearing an old MMA fighter talk about this. He said that like there's 2 reactions people have to getting punched. You get punched. It might have been from Smashing Machine. I can't remember.
Maybe.
But you remember he was like,
I've heard this though. Yeah.
You either like if you get punched, you either shy away because it hurts, or you want to go back and you want to hit them 10 times harder. Yeah. Right. For whatever reason, I have it in me. Like I'm that guy that wants to come back and hit you harder. Right. That's just how I am. And so like I've never looked at it as a negative thing. Don't get me wrong. I get frustrated. I get pissed off. I ruminate a little bit, but at the same time, I get excited. You know, like when I left, I mean, my very first day of jiu-jitsu, I got smashed by everybody. I left like smiling from ear. By the way, I thought it was going to be a blue belt level when I came in, because I thought I was pretty good with my wrestling and stuff. I got smashed by everyone, by the smallest dude in the gym to the biggest one. I loved it. I was like, dude, this is so cool. They got this skill. I want to learn it. Because if you're this good, you're a human being. Mm-hmm. I'm a human being. I can get what you got, right? Yeah. And that's the way I look at it. You know, I remember when I was a kid, I would be in, like, I remember being on the football team. The first time we ever put our pads on and we were going to go basically hit each other, like in the pads, like do live practice.
Yeah.
I remember the first time doing a wrestling match. The thing, and even like to this day, anytime I do something, I'm like, well, if that guy can do it, you know, I'd find the most like physically not impressive human being. If that dude can do it, I can do it. Again, this is maybe not a good way to look at it, but that's the way I look at things. I'm like, if that person can do it, I can do this. You know, and it's always been the way. And so, for instance, when I would go to gyms and I'd get my butt beat, I'd be like, well, if they can do this, I can do this because they're human beings. I may not be as good as them, but I can get some of it.
Yeah.
You know? And so when I trained with Sean, I wasn't just looking at, okay, did I get beat? I was like watching everybody, examining, like, how much did they train? How much did they drill? Like, I'm taking mental notes and actually physical notes, right? I come back, I'm like, okay, like, they're drilling for this much. They're doing this much. You know, they're working on these positions. I was examining everything, not just from like the tactical thing that they were doing, but the strategic view of what they were doing. How long were they drilling? How long were they rolling? What kind of classes were they doing? What was the atmosphere? All these different things. And I was like, okay, I want this to be there. So I started coming back to the gym, and I used to go train with Sean. I would drive down 2 hours, like once a week, to go to train with him and pick some stuff up, come back, and then I would take it and basically model after him and what he was doing for my own self to make myself better. And it made me better, made us better, made all the gym better, you know? And so again, when you get into a situation where you get knocked down, yeah, there's a moment where you, oh my God, you know, if it's frustrating and you feel like you suck, whatever. But at the same time, like, if someone did it, you can do it too. Like, you know, and like, for instance, like, let's say maybe if you're looking at someone who's doing what you want to do and you're like, damn, man, look how good that looks. Go do it. They're a human being. Like, they're doing it. If you want it, you can go do. You may not be them. You're not going to be them, right? You're not going to be them, but you could do something like that. You know, like, again, like, you know, it's not like there's only one that can do it. I mean, you think about like people back in the day were probably looking at Johnny Carson. He was like the original late night guy. He was such an influential guy, and like, I mean, that dude's show was huge back in the day, right? Yeah. Like, it was a huge deal, right? And, you know, there was all these comedians probably like, man, I want to do what he's doing. And now we have all kinds of late night shows. Right? They can be done more, you know, and you can do it in your own way and you whatever. And so that's the thing, you know. And so again, I think for me, like, whenever I get knocked down or I get beat up or whatever, I examine it. Well, what can I do better, you know? And what did this person have that I didn't, you know? Hell, even like in jiu-jitsu, I remember there was a match I had with a guy from a Gracie Baja black belt who was super tough. I lost to him on an advantage. Right, and he shut down my deep half guard game and my half guard game, and I was like, this is like almost 6-7 years ago, and I was like, what did he do? So I went back and watched the match, and then I started searching his name up, and he had some YouTube videos, and one of them was where he was showing the exact stuff he was doing, and I was like, okay, I'm taking notes. I was teaching it in class. I was like, I got to take it because I got to know, because he shut my game down like I'd never felt before. I got to get that, and I started using it, and I was like, now I understand, you know. And so again, we're all human. So again, if you want it, you can go get it. So again, you can have those two reactions. When you get knocked down or when something's not going your way, you can look at it and go, oh, shucks. Or you can say, what can I do? You know, like I was talking about this recently with these the guys I've been coaching. I ended up taking some coaching clients on related to gym business and online business stuff. And it was kind of cool because it's like, you know, one of my things was like, look, you've got this chance here. You got 2 months where we're not able to do I didn't know 2 months, but we did a month-long thing. You got a month together where you're not able to open up your gym. You're not able to do stuff. You could spend this being all pissy about it and just, you know, letting yourself get down in the dumps and whatever else. Or we could work together and we could set you up to have a better foundation so you could serve your students when you come back, so that you could serve yourself when you come back, and you could have a better idea of how to do what you're trying to do right now when you come back to normal, right? Mm-hmm. And so again, like, they took advantage of it, and we've been working on that stuff. Yeah.
You know, a hard decision to make for a lot of people, and sometimes people, I think, message. I know you've gotten messages where somebody's like in their 30s or whatever, and they're like, I want to be a world champion, you know, and you're like, well, you're probably past your prime, or
I mean, you could be a world champion maybe at like Masters.
Well, just say they want to be adult or something. Yeah, world champion. But anyway,
probably.
See, yeah. But so how do you, you know, how do you know when the goal is just not the right goal for you? How do you know maybe when you have to shut it down and do something else?
That's a good question.
Yeah, like, you know, because if you believe wholeheartedly it's what you're supposed to do, but then you don't get there, or there's not a possible way to get there.
Here's the thing I would say. A lot of times there comes this early enthusiasm, and a lot of times the people are like, this is where this comes from. You know, you'll have a guy who's been training jiu-jitsu for like 6 months, you know, and he's like, I want to be a world champion, and he's in his like late 20s. He's never done anything athletic before. It's like, hold your horses, right? Because just think about it. World champions have not been trained for 6 months. World champions, we're talking about when I say world champion, I'm talking about a black belt adult, right?
Yeah.
But again, even the masters division, masters division world champion, any of these dudes, they're killers. They've been training like their tails off for years. And so you have to really look at it and be like, well, when you're looking at someone, and this is maybe another instructive lesson, right? When you look at someone that you're looking at, because again, a lot of times as humans, monkey see, monkey do. We look to other people for inspiration.
Sure.
We say, oh, man, look what he's doing, right? I mean, think about it this way: like podcasting. Joe Rogan literally has blown up podcasting because everybody looks at him and he's like, he's just talking to people and he's making $100 million.
It's easy, right?
It's so easy. And then you start doing a podcast, you're like, whoa, this is difficult. Like stringing together words like this and having a really in-depth conversation that's entertaining to listen to, that's difficult. It's not easy, right? It's a skill. But you got to go back and say, well, so if you wanted to, let's say, for instance, if you wanted to be like Joe Rogan, I want to be the next Joe Rogan. Okay. Well, go back and look to his original podcasts. Look at what those were and then compare them and look how he built up, right? Are you ready for that? Because he's been doing podcasting for like how many years?
10 years.
Over 10 years.
Yeah.
It's been over 10 years. I think he said it's like 11, right?
Yeah, 10 or
But
11.
it's been over 10 or 11 years. Are you ready for a 10 or 11 year ride? Are you? Because that's the question you got to ask yourself. Like, so for instance, like with people, I want to be a world champion. Okay, talk to me in 10 years. Go train. Go train 4 to 5 days a week for 10 years and then come talk to me. Maybe it's a possibility. Are you ready to do that? Because this is the problem. And this is why it goes back to the follow through. People love to set goals. They like to come up with like big ideas, right? And this is why I don't like to talk about my big ideas. I like to keep them to myself for the most part because I don't want to talk about them because I want to start working towards them. And then later on I can say, hey guys, here's what I did. See what I did? Like I was trying to do that, but I didn't want to talk about it because I just wanted to kind of keep it to myself. And again, not everybody works this way. I know some people, they get they get fired up from telling other people.
Yeah.
Me, it fizzles me out. So I just keep it to myself. But you got to think about what's the follow through look like. So if you find someone that you're like, I really like what these, find multiple models, right? Find people that you enjoy what they do, or you would like to have some of what they have, right? You like, I kind of like what they've got going. Great. That's just the way that it works. Like we get inspired, like from the different people we meet through our lives. This is the way that it works. All right, what's that going to take from you? Learn everything you can about those people. Learn everything. You talk to him if you can, right? Like one of my mentors, Al. He's a real estate guy. I remember, like, I'm still to this day, like he's one of the guys that I'm like, man, I just the lifestyle he leads and everything else. But he'll tell me, dude, I screwed up so many times, and he like talks about all his mess ups. Like, he's like, he was telling me one day, he's like, yeah, Chew. Because he was like, I bet you, he was just messing with me. He's like, I bet you think that everything I do has always worked. He's like, but man, this one time he was like, he was going to get into housing development and build some whatever. And he's like, I got the signs made and I got all this stuff made. And he's like, I didn't do shit with it, and it's like just completely flopped. But again, you keep trying and keep going. But it's important to see those because, if you're going to work towards those things, you got to remember none of these roads have been smooth. And you got to think, am I ready for that? Am I willing to do that? And maybe it's just reassuring to know that it's not going to be smooth. And so for me, a lot of times, like whenever I look at someone that's doing really well, if it's something that I kind of like what they've got going on, I'm going to work backwards. I'll go back to their earliest stuff that I can find. I'll go look at their earliest interviews. Like for instance, like I don't know why I got on it, but Jeff Bezos. Mm-hmm. Go look at him in like 1997 when 1994, right? He got that little like the Amazon sign of the computer. Go look at that. Like that's like, to me that's inspirational.
Sure.
Right? Because you're like, he started from shit. He had a sign that said Amazon. He had an idea, back to the idea, right? He had an idea about this customer service and deliverability and all this stuff, right? And whether you like him or not, right? It's a big company, right? Massive company. Yeah. Scary big company, right?
Yeah.
Scary big.
I think they're starting to, I saw something about they made like an ad or had some kind of newspaper, not a newspaper, but it was a like local.
Well, he owns. I think he owns Washington Post, right?
Well, it was like local newscasters like did this the story on like how Amazon has been wonderful during coronavirus and how they've been delivering all these essential things, and it's like it was all like produced by Amazon. Like I don't know how.
Well, I mean,
basically, there's some home cooking going on.
Well, that's what happens with the media anyway. I mean, for anyone listening, I mean, go do your research. And I hate to say it that way, you sound like a conspiracy guy, but you go look. The big media companies are all owned by like a handful of big corporate conglomerations.
Yes.
And they all kind of say the same thing, and it's all based on the same sort of psychological emotions, and nothing ever really gets fixed up. Like when you look at it, I don't want to get off.
It's all negative. I mean, it's kind of
so if you want to, if you like, so here's we don't
have to go on
one little tangent. We'll get
one tangent.
One tangent. I promise. When you look at the Mongolians in China, China did their best to keep the Mongolians. China did their best to keep the Mongolians separated, right? They would create division amongst the tribes, right? And so they would say like, oh, chieftain Ukachuk, whatever. And I don't know how they say. I'm sorry if you're Mongolian. I don't know what Mongolian names sound like. I know Genghis Khan, right, and Temujin, but I don't know what the right way is. So I apologize. I'm an idiot. But they kept the Mongolian tribes separate, right?
Yes.
Keep those people separate because they're hardy, strong people, good fighters. Don't want them to get together. When Temujin, Genghis Khan joined them together, China disappeared, right? So if you want to control people, you create fear and division. Anger, fear, division. You don't look for solutions. You don't bring people together. You get people angry so that they sit on one side of the line and they shout at each other, and then you just keep them that way. And again, when you look at the sort of the news cycles, it's almost like looking at like a season of a TV show or a comic book strip where it's like, for instance, Batman. Batman will never actually kill the Joker, right? The Joker always kind of comes back. They'll bring him back. Oh, the Joker's back out of jail. It's like, why don't you guys do something with that guy? Obviously, he's not really good for society, right? But we lock him up and he gets back out, right? Always gets back out. And so, but when you look at like problems, all the media problems that they perpetuate, they always come back. How come we've been talking about immigration since before I was born? We still got the same problems, right? We healthcare, same problems.
Gotta have something to talk about, man.
Same problem. Well, again, talk about them. There's no productiveness to it. There's no actual fixing to it. Yeah. It's just like when you're watching Star Trek. I remember I was reading about Star Trek, the Borg. You ever watch Star Trek? Okay, so they had this one group of like evil characters called the Borg, and they found that whenever they ran the Borg like series of that season, it did great, right? But they could only run it once a season. So they would only run the Borg once a season because if they did it too much, the people get kind of bored with it. So they'd run the Borg for once a season. So it's just like the same thing. It's like you've got your rogues gallery of bad villains that you bring out, And so again, it's like this. We got the Jugo trading card deck right here, right? The Jugo playing card. So it's like this. If I pull this out right here, I've got the cards, and it's just like this. Boom, the back. That's our problem. So this could be like immigration, healthcare. What's the other ones that are going on? Like, all these different problems. It's the same problems we've been having forever, and they're not going to go away because the idea for the news media is not to solve the problems. It's to just keep the people separated. And again, that's my theory on it. Because to me, it's like we've been having these same problems since I was a small child and before I was ever born, and nothing's ever been solved. And the same presidents, if you go look at like whether they're Democrat, Republican, or whatever, they all say the same thing. Literally, you can put them on like they'll have like a three-way thing where they literally say almost word for word the same damn thing. So anyway, back to what we were talking about. Find those people, model after them. And again, use that as inspiration because again, when you're thinking about goals, it's very easy to get like wrapped up in the early part because you get infatuated. Right. For instance, like you can be in a relationship with a person, and that first those first months of a relationship, they're new and it's exciting, and it's like, oh my God, this person's amazing. And then we've all been in a situation where, again, then the relationship kind of goes on a little bit longer. And you're like, ooh, I don't really like this person that much. They've got some really bad qualities about them. I need to get the hell out of this relationship. Same thing. Maybe it's fun in the beginning, but maybe later on you're like, ooh, I don't really like this as much as I thought I did, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. Like if you get into jiu-jitsu, you're like, I love jiu-jitsu, it's amazing. Everybody should be doing it. You should be doing jiu-jitsu, whatever. And then later on you're like, I don't like this anymore. No problem. Like CrossFit, that happened. Remember back in the day, everybody was like, CrossFit is the best thing ever. You need to be doing CrossFit. And, it was just like, it's very like, everybody was doing CrossFit and you had to do it. And like you talk to a CrossFitter, they had those funny videos where they're like, shit the CrossFitters say, and it's like, are you going paleo, bro? Like it's all this kind of stuff. And it's just like that where people get so into it.
Yes.
It's like, but talk to me in like 5 to 10 years. Let me know like when you really put some time into it, because that is, to me, when you put some time into it, that's where things really show.
Yeah.
Like when I was making this goal of, first off, I never really had the dream of the goal of doing jiu-jitsu full time until I was like almost 7 years in, 7 years in.
Yeah.
And it was only because like, again, I had this desire only increased as I trained. So again, it got worse. It got stronger. As I was getting more and more into jiu-jitsu, it didn't go away. It wasn't like, the enthusiasm's waning, whatever. No, it got stronger. I wanted to do more with it, and it's continued. So it's like, for me, like, if you can go into something for 5 to 10 years and everything's going more and more and more, it's only increasing, well, then you really got something there. But I think you should put some time in it before you decide to put all your eggs in a basket, because that's going to tell you whether or not, like, again, most people anyway, would probably not marry someone that they just met. Right?
Yeah.
You're not going to sort of make your life entangled with another human being that you don't know very well. You're probably going to get to know them a little bit. You're like, I need to really get to know who this person is. Same thing. If you're going to basically put your life on the line. Now, again, if it's different, if it's like a business venture where you're really not that into it and it's just something where you're going to try to make some money and stuff, whatever. Do what you want to do. But if you're talking about like a passion-related thing, right, where you're like, this is my passion, I want to do this forever, right? Put some time into it first before you decide to, like, hedge your bets on this thing that you don't have a good grip on your relationship with. Have you been injured yet? Have you dealt with like a surgery before? I mean, not to say everybody has to do that to make a thing, but like, have you dealt with some adversity within that thing to know, like, is this built on a rock solid foundation, or am I just kind of, whatever?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Do you love it? Yeah. Do you love it on days when it's not all roses and sunshine? Are you still able to get up and look at yourself and think this is what I want to do? Yeah. And that's hard sometimes because you're not always, I don't say motivated, but you're not always like gung-ho, like 100, I'm like full speed ahead. Sometimes you have days you're like, I got to make this video, even though I don't, not as enthused about it. I still have to do the work. And I think that when you get through those days, the harder days, that are maybe you're just not as into it, then I think that, it's probably what you want to do. And let me tell you, podcasting is one of those things where, man, sometimes I'm sitting there on a Sunday night and I just want to sit on my ass and watch TV and do nothing. And I'm like, I got to get everything cut up and got to get everything ready. And it's not always, but what I love about podcasting, what I love about, just conversations and learning from people, I mean, it outweighs any kind of, things that are not ideal, which it can't be. And the one thing that I've gathered, honestly, like, from what you've said and talking even to other athletes and elite level, jiu-jitsu guys, is their mental toughness. You gotta have the mental resolve to deal with some unideal situations. Like if you want to be a gym owner, well, coronavirus is going on, all your gyms are shut down. Are you going to be able to make it through, or are you going to be able to kind of almost restart or pick up like my business? Like, it's me working with people on a one-on-one basis. Like, well, you can work with some people online in that capacity, but like pretty much the people fizzled out that I was like, it's just restarting, and it's sometimes annoying, it's frustrating, but like you have to just keep on going. So I think the mental resolve is huge, and I think the good days are important, of course, but like the bad days or the tough days where things aren't going your way, I think those are even more important because they show you exactly if this is what you want to do.
And when you go through those tough days and you do it anyway, you strengthen your first
100%. Yes.
There's a good book by Angela Duckworth called Grit.
Yes, I haven't read it yet, but I have it.
The first bit of the book is a little like slow, but then it gets really good, and it just like starts hitting hard, But it's a good book, and like one of the ideas is that like you're not, you don't have to be born with grit to develop it. It's something that can be developed. You can develop that grit, and I think that one of the things that you do is like you look at each one of those days where you're a little bit tired or you're a little bit whatever. Don't look at that day as like, oh my God, I'm so tired, whatever. You look at the day as like, all right, this is a day to overcome. Yeah. This is a day to do something to like step up my game a little bit, Like, because when you do that, you tap into a new level that you didn't know existed. Yeah. It's like when you're working out and you're super tired and your body says, quit. And then you just keep going. You tap into a new level. You tap into a new mentality that you didn't realize was there. Even like in competitions, I've had competitions where literally everything in my body was saying, just quit. My arms are burning. My lungs are burning. My heart feels like it's going to pound out of my chest. But it's like, I can't quit. I got to go. And then I win the match or something like that. I'm like, oh, I didn't even realize I had that in me. You know what I mean? And even sometimes where I've stepped up against competition, and this has happened since high school up until, recently, where I've gone into competitions and I've like been like looking at someone and be like, that guy's really good. And then beating them and be like, whoa, I didn't realize I was at that level. Yeah. But again, you're never going to until you step up and try. Again, that's like taking that swing. when you get faced with a chance, you take a swing and you might miss, you might hit it out of the park. You don't know, but you don't know if you don't try. You don't know if you don't swing. And so again, I think it's important when you look at those chances, when those difficult opportunities come, that's a chance to like step your game up. Now again, like the whole coronavirus thing. Like I said, I was talking about this before with you. First couple weeks, probably first week, I was nervous, dude. Like, the news media was getting to me a little bit. They were kind of getting me a little nervous. And then I'm thinking, okay, how's the gym going to hold up? And then I was like, I remember like journaling and meditating and like just shook the shit off. I'm like, okay, all right, faced with something, what are we going to do? And that's what I thought. I was like, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
And I've done some stuff that, again, some really important stuff. I don't want to talk too much about the specifics, but I've done some stuff that was really helpful. That increased the overall, like if you want to get into monetary standard, increase the bottom line of the business, put me into a better position, has made the effects of it less impactful to me, has been a chance to set up some stuff for the future when the students get to come back. A lot of cool stuff's come from it that I think in later on down the road is going to be a good thing. And so again, that happened because of that. But again, it's a mentality shift. All right, I'm getting nervous, I'm getting scared, whatever. I'll shake that stuff off. All right, let's turn off the news. Let's not watch media, because they're just going to get me scared anyway. And let's focus on what I can do right now, what I have direct control over. Let's do that stuff.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool. A lot of things that you said are they're great ideas, and they're great. You can apply them. You don't have to directly apply it, verbatim, but like take the principle of it. For me, as far as habits go, one of the most powerful things, like maybe changing new habits or adjusting habits or whatever, was changing my environment a little bit as well. So that's one thing that I found was helpful.
How so?
Well, look at my phone. I left my phone at home. It was changed the environment. The environment was different. I didn't have access to it. So it's like something that's maybe, I read a book, it was called Atomic Habits. So it's basically,
I have that one.
It's just how to, build new habits, break bad habits, whatever. And one of the things I kept coming back to for me was obviously you can do positive reinforcement, negative, whatever. It was changing the environment. If you're in the same environment doing the same thing, it's never gonna. If you want to eat cleaner or eat better and you have ho-hos in the house or whatever, you're gonna eat those,
you're gonna
right?
Eat the ho-hos.
You're gonna eat them. But if they're not in the house, well, shit, now I got to get in my car. I got to drive to the store.
You're not doing a 20-minute drive for ho-hos. Yeah.
You're not going to do it, right? So the environment shift. And I think using your environment for a lot of different reasons to, come back and see, okay, what am I doing to bring some attention back to, the situation and maybe not be a victim. Yeah. Use it to your advantage. So environment, I think, is very powerful in multiple things. Being a springboard, for you or myself, using that time valuably. Using it to our best interest. So yeah, I think that's the main thing I think about habits, because those are hard things for me. If my phone, for example, is a bad habit that I want to change, and I need my phone, I want to use it, but I want to use it efficiently, and I don't want to take over, to take presence away from me being where I am. Yeah. So changing my environment. So
that's a good one. Yeah. Changing environments is super, super important. Another one that was helpful for me. There's another book on habits called. What is it called? It's by Charles Duhigg, called, I'll look up the name real quick while we're talking, but in the book he talks about, the reasons why people do certain things with related to habits, and he talks about this idea of the habit loop, right? And there's a bunch of marketing stuff. Let me bring this up real quick. Charles Duhigg, habits. But basically he talks about the idea of this habit loop, figuring out like what is it that makes you want to do it. So for instance, he had this habit where it's called The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. He had this sort of thing where he found that he was eating cookies all the time, and he was figuring out that like he would eat a cookie every day, go down to the cafeteria in his office that he worked at, sit with his coworkers, eat a cookie, and then come back up. And then he was like, man, I'm gaining some weight. So he was like, I need to stop eating these damn cookies. But he had the urge to go with the cookie. Yeah. Well, he figured out that it wasn't really the cookie; it was him wanting to just be around other people, get out of his office for a little bit. So he would just go down there and hang out and get some water, and just kind of talk to everybody, and that was like satisfying to him. Yeah. For me, I remember like some years ago, I felt like I was drinking too much coffee. Right? I was like, man, I'm drinking way too much coffee, because it was making me jittery and stuff like that. But like I wanted to, for some reason, I always wanted to go to the coffee shop every day, go get coffee. So what I started to notice, I remember after reading this book, I was like, huh. So I was like, well, I don't want to drink so much damn coffee. It's like, what else could I do? So I started noticing that it really wasn't that I was wanting coffee. What it was is that I wanted to get out. Like I was in the gym all day long, and I just wanted to get out for a little bit.
Change your environment.
Yeah,
maybe.
so I started going to like the park and go for a walk, go for a run. Sometimes I'd go to the coffee shop and just get like a green tea instead, much lower caffeine, and just be in a different environment for a little bit. Whatever, different stuff like that. Sometimes I'd go home and take a nap, come back. Whatever it is that I needed to do. But I noticed that I didn't need a coffee afterwards because it wasn't the coffee that I was really needing. I just wanted to get out of the gym and I needed an excuse. And so sometimes you can have those situations where, like, for instance, a lot of times I think if people were like cognizant enough of it, like when you start getting that twitch to touch your phone, it's like really what's going on is you're just like, you're in this state of, I don't know, I'm not, you're thinking, you're being alone, and there's this awkwardness about it. Yeah. Like you see it all the time. Go like the next time you're in like a line at a coffee shop or a restaurant or something, just look. People cannot stand for 2 seconds yeah. without like having to look down at a phone. It's like yes. they feel awkward just standing in place. Just being a human being and standing in a room without doing something, you instantly have to do something, And I always find it. It's such a, it's a fun little experiment. Like when I go to the coffee shop, I'll just look. There might be 6 people in line.
You're just mean mug people, just staring.
Not
at
mean
them.
mug.
I'm just kidding.
I just mean mug. I'm just trying to be. I'm just observant.
Right.
But I'm just like it's funny because it's like you'll see people. It's like as soon as they get to the line, they kind of look around and then boom. Pocket the phone, and then I'll look at and I'm not like trying to creep, but I'm just like studying, like I'm like looking at like what they're doing on their phone, and they're not doing anything, they're just scrolling aimlessly. I'm like, yeah, like that's it, like it's for what? Like there's nothing on Facebook that's going to be that like that you're scrolling that's going to be that important. Like to me you'd be better served thinking about like what am I going to be doing today? Yeah. But again, it's a digital addiction.
Yes.
And so I think again it's one of those things where being cognizant of that. Okay, like what's really going on? Well, you feel awkward standing in place, right? Well, like what could you do? Well, you could just get comfortable with it. You could do something else instead of doing that. You could do something useful besides just sitting there and messing around on Facebook with no reason. Yeah. So anyway, I'm just kind of rambling on it. But
yes, you are rambling. It's good. That's what happens when you get coffee.
Mm-hmm. All right, guys. So I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Hopefully that stuff's useful to you. Again, I don't expect everything that I said to be useful to you or to be the way to do things. And again, I don't ever think it's that way because, even with jiu-jitsu, I don't ever think that the way that I do things is the way to be or the way to do anything. It's the way that I do it, and hopefully it's useful to it. And I'm always adjusting the way that I do things. And so again, that's just something that could be useful to you, could be, and I hope that it is. So give it a whirl, and maybe take some of that stuff for your own experience, your own life, your own training, your own dreams, goals, aspirations, whatever you're shooting for, and so hopefully that's useful to you. Again, I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast, and thank you guys so much for being here. Again, just a big shout out to our sponsors. We have Epic Roll, BJJ.com. You can check out their website. Matt does a great job with the t-shirts and the rash guards and the gis and everything else he does is quality. I love the artwork that he puts together. It's unique. I think it's cool. It's not just something that's going to see like you're going to see everywhere else. It's definitely going to stand out. You can check out his stuff at that website, epicrollbjj.com. Promo code is jiu-jitsu. It's 15% off. Our other sponsor, which is one of our main sponsors, and it's the stuff that I use like every day or every night when I go to sleep, is Charlotte's Web. You can check them out at charlottesweb.com. Promo code again is jiu-jitsu. We try to keep it simple, 15% off the order. Jugo, the card game, it's at JugoPlay, JIUGOPLAY.com. You can use the promo code jiu-jitsu and save 10% on the order. And again, just check that out. It's a way to kind of almost like have like jiu-jitsu in your pocket because you've got this card game there that you can play with someone if you want to. It'd be something, like I said, I really could see this being a really cool thing to do with some kids, to teach them jiu-jitsu and teach them the flows and stuff like that. So if you've got any kids that are interested in jiu-jitsu or some newbies that want to learn kind of the flow of stuff, I think it could be really cool for that. And then, again, if you want to support the podcast directly, check out patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. Again, there is a membership thing where you subscribe each month and you get some content, you get all this stuff, and there's literally hundreds of stuff in there because we've been going for over 2 years now, and there's tons of stuff built up, so you can dig in as much as you like. And again, you can always unsubscribe if you don't like it. If it's not your thing, it's $7. You'll spend more money on like a crappy fast food dinner, like than getting like some content that could be entertaining, useful to you, that sort of thing, and support a podcast that you are hopefully enjoying. So, guys, with all that said, I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Hope you had fun with us today, and hope you're staying strong out there. I know that it's a difficult time for all of us, but we're going to get through it. We're going to get out of it, and we're going to be back in the gym, getting sweaty, giving each other struggle snuggles in no time. We can look back on it. But again, I do encourage you, whatever you're doing right now, just try to take a step forward. I know that this stuff is negative. A lot of times there's crap going on all the time. People are, I don't care what side of the political fence you're on with this stuff. it's a tough time for everyone. I just encourage you to take a step back and try to think about what you can do to make some sort of positive impact in your own life, because everybody can do that. You can always take one step forward each day towards making something positive happen, and I just encourage you to do that. So if nothing else you got from that podcast, let that be something. So hope you're doing well, hope you're staying strong, and we'll talk to you next week.